The culture of work. We're going to look at labor unions and we're going to look at labor unrest, strikes, and lockouts. Remember, this time period in the post-Civil War era, this industrial revolution that we've been talking about, is a difficult transition for many people in the workforce. They are going from working outside to working inside. They are going from being guided by a clock or by the sun to being guided by the clock. They are being transitioning from being driven by the season and what to do according to the season to now being driven by market forces. Many workers are dealing with having supervisors for the first time, and many workers are dealing with that increasingly complicated, sophisticated, and almost militaristic hierarchy of American businesses. What this means is work has become more impersonal. That kind of personal connection you see in that picture there is becoming more and more rare as more and more workers are working with machines, as more and more workers check off that box of unskilled labor, and as more and more employers are more removed from their businesses. If you're working on somebody's farm, they're probably right there alongside you. Now, maybe they're doing a slightly different job, but they're in the field. That's not true on the factory floor. All of these differences, these challenges, mean that industrial workers have very little connection with the job that they're working. And we can see this from census data. Over 1/2 of all workers in the industrial era are not in the same county 10 years later. That was not true in the pre-Civil War agrarian economy of the United States. But after the Civil War, as industrialization really gained steam, American workers are moving around to try to find better and better jobs. To help deal with these changes to work, American workers make adjustments. For one, at first, in the factories, it's going to be the workers that dictate the pace and the quality of work that's turned out in those factories. Eventually, that will change. It's going to be workers finding jobs for friends and relatives and getting them employment. It's going to be workers teaching new employees how to deal with this modern workplace. They even formed social and fraternal organizations to support each other in this changing economy, and some joined unions. Unions serve an important function for these early industrial workers. They provide companionship in these long, arduous days of labor. They notified each other of job postings and better employment opportunities. Perhaps most importantly, they provided insurance for accidents and other calamities that might befall a union worker. And this was rare, having insurance in the working class. They provided food even for families in the union. They hosted social events outside of the workers' day. But probably most importantly, the union is going to indoctrinate many new workers into the labor movement, into that struggle between labor and ownership. Another big change in the industrial era is better opportunities. There are opportunities, more opportunities for better jobs and higher wages. In fact, in the early industrial period, in the post-Civil War era, 1/4 of all American workers rose from working class jobs to middle class jobs. So this guy, the arrow's pointing to there on the line, maybe he's one of the lucky ones who becomes a manager over here, overseeing the business on the floor. This is even more true, this opportunity for improvement. It's even more true for the second generation, for the children of those first industrial workers. And it's also true for immigrants. Now, the most extreme case of this is Andrew Carnegie, who arrived in America a poor immigrant child and rose to be one of the richest men in the United States. But he is a rare exception to the rule. The vast majority of American business owners are U.S. born from at least upper middle class families. But these opportunities for improvement, opportunities for better jobs, this hope and dream of being the next Andrew Carnegie, a self-made man, really tempers or lowers the appeal of unions and radicalism. Why else were unions so weak in the late 1800s? Well, A big reason is just numbers. Never more than 2% of the American labor force is part of a union. In the 1800s, labor unions were still regarded by many Americans as foreign entities. This is something that European workers do. They're still seen as too radical. They're too associated with ideas of socialism and communism and takeover of the means of production. Furthermore, the labor force is fragmented by a variety of reasons. They're fragmented by trade. So steel workers don't see a strong connection in their plight to the plight of garment workers. Miners don't see a strong connection, a bond with bakers. Labor unions and the labor movement are also fragmented by ethnicity. Rather than all workers joining together across ethnic divisions, we see unions for Irish workers. We see unions for Italian workers. We see unions for Jewish workers. Rather than pooling together, the labor force really allowed their nation of origin and their ethnic divisions to further divide the labor force. And that mobility of workers that we've already talked about, that those workers moving around always to try to find a little bit better wages, makes it really hard to organize. If people are constantly looking for new work, they're probably not staying where they're at, and they're probably not staying in the union they were part of. Another big reason why labor unions are so weak is because employers fiercely opposed and fought against their workers organizing into unions.